Very few things in history are black and white. A lot of it is gray, and that includes the Civil War. It was actually fighting for states' rights.
States' rights to do what?
Excuse me, sir?
States' rights to do what? What did you want to use those rights for? You usually don't mention that part. I want to hear it. I wonder what you want to do with them.
Well, the Confederacy didn't want to be oppressed by the North.
Really, what were they preventing you from doing? What did they not want you to do?
Listen, my friend, there was more to it than slavery for why we made the Confederacy.
That is really, really interesting, because the guy who made the Confederacy, the vice president, said that was because they wanted to have slavery, and all the state constitutions said they wanted to have slavery, and they seceded the moment that the president got elected that was going to abolish slavery. Boy, the Confederacy sure looks slavery adjacent, at least. No, anyways, states' rights do what?
You're ignoring our other concern.
Yeah, but among the concerns was slavery, so I don't care, because you deserve it, because you're evil. And slavery is evil. That's you should know this. By the way, could you answer my question, you fucking traitor? States' rights to do what?
Well, it's our heritage.
It lasted 5 years. The Annoying Orange has existed longer than the Confederacy did. The fucking Annoying Orange, dude. You're gonna celebrate a nation so fucking weak the Annoying Orange outlived it?
Well, states' rights.
Got Douglas.
Each Dixie boy must understand that he must mind his Uncle Sam away, away. We'll all go down to Dixie.
Ooh, I do love that song. Each Dixie boy must understand that he must mind his Uncle Sam, as the Proud Boys have now learned. And the Oath Keepers. And Donald Trump, a Yankee Dixie boy, is finally going to understand. How are you tonight, wicked community? Pinkerbell, hello. Early for something for once in my life, and I'm on time for something for once in my life. That lined up lovely. My kids love this cartoon. Oh, that's fantastic. I just discovered it, and it is groovy. Wicked Foxy Dragon, how you doing? Mars Falcon, hello. Amazingly accurate portrait of Jefferson Davis on the Confederate flag. Kudos to the artiste. Tamara Chance, hello. Good to see you, my friend. I see that Spock in there. Hello. Oh, you know, I was properly bummed out all day, just all day. I rewatched Nuremberg, been looking at the historic parallels, and then something dawned on me, which is that we have the internet, and we've already had the Nazis. All that's happening in the United States right now, not great. I'll give you that. The barrels in the river, the seditionists going on unpunished, the leaders of the coup. It's bad. Not gonna lie to you. But the key difference is you. And that's a heavy burden to have on your shoulders, and I'm sorry for that. If there's any consolation, I'm here with you. I feel it too. But a Reddit comment started my little turnaround today. It was a Reddit comment. The Redditor said this, and they were expressing it as a concern, but to me, it made me feel a hell of a lot better. To me, what they said was a message of hope. They said that they believe that the rhetoric has turned up, and it has turned up of late. The Nazis are turning out in larger numbers. The scum is making itself more apparent these days. Why? Why? Well, in their opinion, it's because it has finally dawned on them that Donald Trump is not going to win in 2024. Doesn't that just feel good to say? He's not going to win in 2024. I remind you, he lost before the insurrection. He lost when he was the incumbent and Joe Biden was not. He appears to be gearing up to run against Joe Biden, with Joe Biden being the incumbent and actually doing a competent job. I just am confident that you will not fail to vote in 2024. And the people that turned out for Biden out of fear of Trump will again, because Trump does not look less dangerous these days. That heartens me quite a bit. Does mean it is that much more important that we go out and vote. It does mean it's that much more important that we get all hands on deck between now and then. But understand, this is the exhausting end of a fight we look like we are in a position to win. If it goes to the refs, right now, we're going to win. We just need to maintain. Ooh. That said, we also need to learn from MAGA. And to that end, I got some stomping on MSNBC I'd like to ask you to join me in. And I think we should look at some authoritarians around the world. We've been focusing on the U.S. quite a bit, frankly, putting the pressure on until we could get indictments. It looks like we're damned close to mission success. We're on indictment watch. We still have not got the indictment that we're waiting on, but it looks good. So to that, we're going to start it off by looking at how the rest of the world is suffering. I take you, ladies and gentlemen, to Israel. Yes, indeed, Israel. Our wayward little brother, it feels like. I mean, my God, I kind of get how England feels a little bit now. You know? The situation is this. Israel has just voted to essentially defang its Supreme Court. Here's a local news station breaking it down.
We are back with an update on the unrest in Israel. Demonstrators taking to the streets today in Jerusalem after lawmakers passed a controversial bill to limit when the Supreme Court can intervene in government actions.
In response, businesses are closing their doors and thousands of military reservists say they won't report for duty. ABC's Faith Abube has the latest.
Anger on the...
Well, the rest of this is the bummer. Right there. That's your little slice of hope. The people in Israel are still decent. They are under an authoritarian government. They are under an apartheid government, frankly. And by the way, we ought to stop supporting them. We're not helping the people of Israel when we encourage their government to be ruthless like this. We're not being good allies by never questioning our support. Just like our allies are not good allies by sticking with us when Trump was in charge, or by joining us in our crusade in the Middle East. We're not being good allies by sticking with Israel when they do just anything at all. But take some heart, because the people are not putting up with this nonsense.
Streets of Jerusalem as widespread protests against a multi-stage plan to overhaul the judicial system intensify. Thousands packing the streets, some tying themselves to each other near the Supreme Court, and police officers seen blasting demonstrators with water cannons.
We're here to protect our democracy. We were left with no choice but to go to disobedience.
Inside the Israeli parliament, opposition lawmakers storming out in defiance. The remaining members of the Knesset unanimously passing a highly controversial measure to limit the court's power to block government decisions it deems unreasonable.
I am 100% in favor of this judicial reform. I think my country needs it.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and allies argue that the plans to overhaul the judiciary is about returning power to the government. But critics have called it a full-blown coup meant to crush Israel's Supreme Court and protect Netanyahu, who's facing criminal charges for bribery and corruption.
Shouldn't have done the going out screen there. Yeah, it is that. It is completely that. And that lady calling it judicial reform. Well, it is that, technically. Sort of like how if you burn down a bakery, you'd be making well-done bread. Technically true. Ridiculous. And boy, whatever propaganda outlets they have working there, doing their job, giving people the talking points.
The long-serving leader has dismissed the allegations and called criticism that the judicial reform would destroy democracy.
That Mr. Peanut-looking mother effer, by the way, is Benjamin Netanyahu, and he's a war criminal. You should know that.
Absurd. The Monday vote coming just hours after Netanyahu was released from the hospital after a 2-night stay where he was fitted with a pacemaker, according to his doctor. Meantime, the White House calling the passing of the judicial overhaul bill unfortunate.
Major changes in a democracy should be, if they're going to be enduring, must have as broad a consensus as possible.
President Biden said it didn't make sense for Netanyahu to move ahead with the plans for judicial overhaul, saying that given the range of threats and challenges facing Israel right now, the plan has become more divisive, not less. But the White House says the U.S. will continue to support Israeli leaders to build a broader consensus through political dialogue. In Washington, Faith Abube, ABC News.
All right, so some points of clarity. Number one, I'm actually not I'm not against even a country getting rid of its highest court. Hell, I'm not against this country getting rid of its highest court, one I'm talking to you from right now. Context matters, though. Benjamin Netanyahu committed crimes. This is no different than if we... This is no different than if we kept replacing judges until somebody who was willing to give Trump a pass was the judge in charge. That's the problem I have here. I don't even understand enough about how Israel's Supreme Court works to tell you if this was a long time coming. But I'll tell you this. It's not a coincidence that it's happening when Netanyahu's ass is on the line. And Biden has the wrong idea. What did he do? Again, he did the same thing that he always does with right-wingers. Tisk, tisk, but there will be no consequences. I'm unhappy with you, Israel, but we're going to continue to support you completely, never asking questions. There is nothing you can do, Israel. Not a genocide, not colonizing the land of the Palestinians. Nothing you can do that will lose our support. And so, go on being warlords with our bullets. Go ahead. If you're unhappy about this, as I am, I would recommend you do Israel a favor by writing your representative, link in the description, and telling them to speak out against this. I have asked podcasters and their audiences from other countries to sanction the United States when we do things that are deserving of sanctions. I've asked this of them because we need the world to come together and demand decency. Let's get that started here. Write your representatives. Tell them you want to hear them speaking out against Israel. This behavior is corrupt. We should treat it as such. Stop supporting them till they get their act straight. Let's see what the wicked community has to say. Mars Falcon, Jim Crow was amendment reform. Yeah, exactly. Pinkerbell, perfect ratio. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Mars Falcon, liberals are always slow on the uptake when fascism snarls and snaps. So true. Most of them got good hearts, but live in a fairy tale land, like they think they're in a movie and it cannot happen. Wake up, center, 100%. Pinkerbell, finger wagging that comes with a blank check. Seems like a missed message. Perfectly put. Wicked Foxy Dragon agreeing as well. Absolutely. Christy Zilkowski, Biden pisses me off with the blatant disregard he has for the Palestinians. Talks about Russian war crimes, but says nothing of Israel. Exactly. I got good eggs. Should open a store. I got good eggs in the audience, I tell you. It's well put and completely correct. All right, let me first of all assure you, it ain't what we're about to go into, but we got a fun one at the end. Do not worry, we got a fun one. But that ain't what's next. I spotted what I think is a rare miss from Ali Velshi on MSNBC. In the description, I put down why. But let's have a gander first. Yes, this one was a rare miss from my man, Ali Velshi. You know I like Ali Velshi on MSNBC. I like that other fella. I can never remember his name, though. He looks like a child. Chris Hayes. And a lot of the hosts on there. But boy, when they're wrong, are they wrong? And here's Ali Velshi, hemming and hawing, trying to answer the question. Should we hold Trump to account for all of his crimes? Or should we be a little bit corrupt? This is the question he's asking, in essence. Should we take into consideration that we're a little bit scared of his bunch of terrorist supporters? Let me answer that question right out the gate. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I hope, genuinely hope, his terrorist scumbag head supporters try to rise up. Because, frankly, I'm looking for an excuse to stomp them down. And I would like these punks who are walking around our streets right now, happy to make people's lives miserable. I'd like them in a prison cell. That's me personally. That's me being immature, but honest. Unfortunately, I don't think they have the courage. But regardless, we should not take into account the fact that this guy has scum for supporters. Let's get to Ali Velshi before I go crazy.
When former President Gerald Ford decided to pardon Richard Nixon in 1974, he believed he was doing what was in the best interests of the country. He believed that a long, protracted trial that could drag on for months would do more harm than good. In his pardon, he wrote, "The tranquility to which this nation has been restored could be irreparably lost by the prospects of bringing to trial a former president of the United States." End.
Let's hang out here for a second. You could almost copy and paste that to Reconstruction. Discussion of that. Oh, well, we want to go back. We want to go back to peace. We just finished this war. We're enjoying this, and now people are grumbling. We don't like grumbling. Yeah, they enslaved a bunch of people. Yeah, they betrayed the country and killed a bunch of folks. Yeah, I know. But we don't like to make a scene. You could copy and paste that to Barack Obama. Talking about George W. Bush. There was discussion, very briefly. I don't know if you were watching, but during the transition, 2008, there was questions. Are you going to look into the cause of the Iraq War? Barack Obama said, it's time to move on. It's time to start healing as a nation. So what I'm going to do is just keep that war going throughout my entire presidency and not hold him to account. That's my Obama. You could copy and paste that to all the dumbass mistakes we've made throughout history where we fail to hold people to account. So let's watch Ali Velshi wonder. Just ask the question, was he right or was he wrong? He was wrong is the answer. But go ahead, ask the question.
Quote, there are clear parallels between Nixon and Donald Trump, the first president ever to be impeached twice and the first president who has faced a criminal indictment, let alone two and possibly a third. But let's be clear, the current times in which we live are vastly different from the Watergate era. Donald Trump must be held to account for his actions, but it is...
No. I would have liked him to have mentioned they were caused by our failure in the Watergate era. But okay, keep going, Allie. I'm angry with you. Damn it.
Watergate era. Donald Trump must...
And you won't distract me with that fantastic suit either. God dang it.
...be held to account for his actions. But it is essential to consider the delicate balance between the necessity to prosecute Trump and exacerbating the ever-growing polarization in America. The GOP's embrace of America's paranoid fringes is no longer an
Yeah, we wouldn't want to anger these upstanding citizens. We don't want to exacerbate the polarization. We want to make compromise with these goddamn terrorists, you see? How will we ever please these filthy terrorists if we prosecute Trump to the fullest extent of the law? I'm so sorry, Ali Velshi. I'm so sorry. How could I have doubted you? Look at these sweet boys. Look at these sweet, sweet fellows. How could I have dreamed of hurting their fifis? Those miserable f***s belong in a prison cell just for standing out there playing toy soldier in front of, what is that, a Harry's Army surplus? Christ. I want them offended. I want them spending the rest of their lives just seething. And I want their lives to be short because I want their hearts to pop from the heart attack they have when we elect, I don't know, a gay, middle-aged trans woman as president. That's what I wish for them. And that is what any decent, law-abiding citizen deserves to see. Their hearts actually pop out of their chest from the fury that they have.
Afterthought, it is a stark reality. Trump's presidency has embraced and encouraged the resurgence of the white nationalist movement, whose members now police our nation's libraries, our school board meetings, and various venues across America, menacing and harassing those who are not aligned with their beliefs. Trump's cult-like following within the GOP has made it politically costly for any Republican to deviate from his extremist rhetoric, fearing alienation from a party that demonstrates fealty to him time and time again. Trump has also cynically projected his legal woes onto his supporters. painting any indictment of him as an attack on all of them and pledging to get revenge on their behalf.
Every time the radical left Democrats, Marxists, communists, and fascists indict me, I consider it a badge, a great, great, beautiful badge of honor and courage. Because I'm being indicted for you. In 2016...
Oh, Trump, I am going to honor the Christ out of you in that case. I'm going to ensure you get the highest honors. May you get a chair that honors you right up till the end, you little mother.
I declared, I am your voice. Today I add, I am your warrior. I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution.
Polling over the last several months indicates that with each new indictment, Trump's popularity grows among his extremist Republican base, considering...
Which should tell you, Ali Velshi, I know you watch this show, which should tell you that their opinion is not worth considering. How about that? This guy gets indicted, every I dotted, T crossed, and they like him more than you should consider what they have to say less. They are not worth a damn. Okay? Can you get that through your head, skull, whatever? I got distracted. He's got beautiful glasses. He's a sharp dresser. I can't knock him for that. But my God, why are we having this conversation on MSNBC? Why is that lower third, the balance between prosecuting Trump and polarizing America? What the hell are you talking about? Let's find out.
All these factors, prosecuting this particular former president becomes an entirely different ballgame. However, it is a ballgame that it is entirely necessary to play. Excusing the behavior of a defiant and habitual lawbreaker with fascist ambitions would raise serious questions about the integrity of our democratic system, and it could undermine the very bedrock of our democratic principles.
End of
I
discussion.
want to dig deeper into this topic. I'm joined by two of the smartest people on this that I know. Ann Applebaum is a Pulitzer Prize-winning historian and staff writer at The Atlantic. She's also the author of several books, including Twilight of Democracy, The Seductive Lure of Authoritarianism. Timothy Snyder is a professor of history at Yale University, a permanent fellow at the Institute for Human Sciences, and author of On Tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century. I've relied so much on the two of you over the years to understand things that are going on, so it's a real privilege to have you both here to address this issue. And there's a specific question that I want to address with you, and I've already received tweets about this morning from people who think this is an unnecessary conversation, that there shouldn't be any conversation about the potential risks of prosecuting and finding Donald Trump guilty of the things that he has been charged with and may be charged with. It may be entirely necessary and important to do so, but it could further polarize the country. I'd love to get your take on that.
So, yes, I think it's important to talk about the risks because there are risks.
I didn't realize that I was tweeting Ali Velshi. Okay.
But it's also important to look at historical precedents. So you mentioned one in your introduction, and this was Nixon. The reason why that situation was so different from this one is that Nixon was condemned by his own party. So Republicans in Congress, Republicans in the country, not all of them, but many of them wanted him to resign. They participated in the Watergate hearings process. And by the time Gerald Ford became president, there was a consensus, at least within the party leadership, that that he was well out of the White House.
She's skating by why that is. Why? Well, we have contemporary answers. They told us why in their own words. Because they thought there was no way he would win in a court of law. They thought they'd all be taken down with him. Yeah, keep that goddamn tongue out for a second. You get to look dumb if you say a dumb thing. This isn't something where we hem and haw about how the bad guys might take it if the good guys win. This is not a soccer game where we're ahead by so many points that the sportsmanlike thing to do is quit scoring. No. We are in the position we are in now because we failed to act immediately following January 6th. He should have been arrested days after January 6th. He should have been arrested before January 20th. And then, when we allowed him to leave the White House unbruised, without his dumb, spray-tanned head getting slammed into a cop car roof, when we allowed that to happen, we didn't arrest him when he was a private citizen. Should have been arrested immediately. He should have awaited the results of the investigation from prison because he was to quote a Harrison Ford movie, clear and present danger. An obvious danger. I don't know what the legal wording is for it. I don't know exactly which laws this would have fallen under. But often we forget that the laws are there to just formally say what we know to be true. He's an obvious threat. He did what he did pretty much publicly. I'm sure he did worse in private. But we saw him orchestrate the coup. We saw him send the mob down to the Capitol. He should have been awaiting trial from a cell. But we failed to do that, and so this corrupt Republican Party did not believe that consequences were coming. And so now she's going to talk about how it's different. Well, it's different now because the Republican politicians, our servants, our betters, they won't be pleased about it. They haven't given us permission. It's our failure to enforce the law that caused that. And if we continue to do this, if the leftmost television news channel starts talking about how we should consider giving him a pass on some of these things because our betters have said they are displeased, we're going to get Hitler too.
We don't have that now. We have a Republican Party that is encouraging Trump, that is spreading the same kinds of messages, that is...
And we really don't want to offend our betters.
Questioning whether January 6th even was an insurrection at all, even though, as we know more and more, we have more and more evidence that it was. And so in that circumstance, it's very important that the law proceeds further because there isn't anything else that can stop that further radicalization of the Republican Party. So although I agree with some of the questioners that it's important to, it's important to ask I agree with your point that it's important to look at the risks. It's also important to understand why this is different. And let me mention one more precedent, which is that of Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, who was released from prison. This is, way back in the early days before he'd been elected. He was released from prison after an attempted insurrection, and this actually encouraged his followers more. So we also have to think about what are the risks of not condemning him, of not.
Anne Applebaum. I haven't figured out a way to visualize eating my words, but I'm going to snarf them down right now. Good point. I shouldn't have paused you when I did. Don't make me regret doing it now. You're right. Except it is not important to ask the question Ali Velshi is asking. The dumb question. It's a question from a weak little man. Most nights, Ali Velshi's a lion. That night, when he did this segment, he was a sniveling coward. He was a moron to ask that question. It's a horrible, it's an asinine question to ask. So no, we don't have to ask that question. We don't have to consider the pros and cons of enforcing the law. But other than that, no notes. Sorry I yelled at you earlier.
Not carrying the January 6th investigations to their obvious end, because if we don't do it, then we give actual more impetus to that movement.
Tim, across the world, including in Eastern and Central Europe, but in America in the Civil Rights Movement, in South Africa during the anti-apartheid movement, in India during the independence movement, there were people who knowingly broke laws for an honorable end, to change oppressive laws. Donald Trump has managed to squirm his way into that crowd, at least with his own supporters. It sounds outrageous, but it's actually happening. He is convincing people, as Mussolini did. I think Mussolini called himself an avenger. Donald Trump calls himself their retribution. How is it that you separate these things? How is it that you explain to people that, no, these were actual laws he broke? Whether he believed he won the election or he didn't, he undertook things to break the law in America that undermined democracy, not for the gain, not for the benefit of some better result.
I mean, the fundamental difference is sometimes people will break laws in the name of a principle, and that principle can itself be the rule of law. That's actually the foundation of the history of the United States of America. The common law tradition that we inherited from Britain assumed that the king was not above the law. The basis of the American Revolution, therefore, was holding the king to the law. And once we had done that, we then wrote up that common law in the form of a written constitution, which made it very clear that there would be no king and that nobody would be above the law. The president is someone who holds office for a certain period of time. It's not a special person who is somehow above the law. When Mr. Trump talks about being retribution or he threatens revenge, what he's doing is that he is using fascist language. He's using language from an entirely different political system, one which says that that law doesn't matter, that there's no difference between the leader and the party and the state and the people, that everything ultimately comes down to the whim and the will of one person. If we want to get ourselves into a fascist system, then the thing to do, as Ann suggests, is not to prosecute Mr. Trump. Boom. Because the meaningful polarization in this country, I believe, is between people who believe in law and people who don't. And the people who don't believe in law are going to be galvanized and encouraged by a powerful figure, someone who has been president and wishes to be president. And of course, that's the difference. Yes. The person who is the leader and has the power is now calling upon people to break the law.
And this concept of vengeance, this idea that I was in power, I'm still pretty powerful, and I could be ultimately powerful again, has come to play in an ad that Donald Trump put out a few days ago on, I think on Thursday, on Truth Social. And let's just play this, and I want to get your take on it.
If you around with us, if you do something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done.
You know what? I don't give a damn. Both of Velshi's guests gave correct answers. And, all right, maybe Ali Velshi did that whole segment just to explain to the nervous Nellies why it's important that we enforce the law. I just do not like the framing, and I have no patience for cowardice. None. You want to know what it could look like to have a swift reaction from a court of law, I give you this CNN article. Brazil's Jair Bolsonaro barred from running for office for 8 years. If you were watching on January 20th of this year, I said, look for how long it takes Brazil to handle their coup. Look at them. See how they handle it. 5 out of 7 judges found the former president guilty, effectively ending any hope of a political comeback in the forthcoming 2026 election. 2 of the judges voted against the decision, which prevents Bolsonaro from running for public office for 8 years. Jair Bolsonaro, with some of the same actors, including Steve Miller and Steve Bannon, attempted a January 6th style coup in Brazil because Lula da Silva whipped him in the polls. Already, they collected evidence, they held a trial, they have a verdict. Jair Bolsonaro will not be able to run for office in the next election. I would argue that you could have a stricter punishment, certainly, but they handled their business. We should learn from that. And I don't appreciate wishy-washy segments on cable news talking about how maybe we don't want to. I leave it to you to decide. The link to the Velshi clip is in the description. If you want to watch the whole thing, by all means, go for it. If you end up feeling that even asking the question was offensive, as I personally do, but I'll tell you, I'm not as committed to that idea, and I'd love to hear your opinions. Walk me off the cliff here, or walk me back from the edge. If you end up feeling that you would like to express to MSNBC that it was a stupid-ass question to ask in the first place, their contact information is in the description. And I would say let's take a page from MAGA's book. What does Fox have happen to them when they say things that are not the lies MAGA wants to hear? They get inundated with phone calls and emails. Well, we're looking for the truth, and we are looking for backbone. Take a page out of their book. If you feel the way I do about this, write them. Say that was a dumb question to ask. The answer is obvious. Just a thought. Let's see what the wicked community has to say. Tamara Chance, of course he knew. Trump will lie about the time of day. Yes. Just lately. It's unserious and inappropriate for the current news climate. Yeah. It's almost, let's call it green time. Aaron Taylor, is anyone even watching Fox anymore? I hope not. Just lately, I adore Ali Velshi, but that was dumb. Yeah, that's part of what annoyed me so much about it. And to be fair, given Ali Velshi's general tenor of his coverage, I'm going to choose to believe that he was asking that question as a pathway to explaining why it is important to prosecute Trump to the fullest extent of the law. You gotta be more clear than that, though, man. We're all tired at the end of the day. We can't do this. What was that Irish pamphlet that was written about the potato famine? Killing me. A modest proposal. We can't do this a modest proposal game where you get 3 or 4 sentences in before you realize something's amiss. Come on. Tell it to us straight, man. Ridiculous. Pinkerbell, my parents were lifelong Fox viewers. My parents were lifelong Fox viewers, and they stopped watching after Jan 6. Pinkerbell, congratulate your parents for me. Hell yeah. Wicked Foxy Dragon asking, can you explain who Doris is for our new members, please? Yes, Doris Lashevsky is those are our members. And if you are a friend of Doris, then you are a member in our Wicked community, which keeps this show afloat, and it is highly appreciated. You also get to watch the show be made because you have access to our live stream notes, which are updated just about 24/7. And for a little bit of history, Doris Lashevsky is the first person who ever watched your old pal Jake online. And this is way back in my Local 4 days. She's been around for a while. Aaron Taylor, the difference between me and the host, I recognize Fox News for what it is, which is no better than MSNBC and CNN. Let me clarify for you, Aaron Taylor. It's way the hell worse. It's not a false dichotomy. They're all trash, lying to tell you what to think. Aaron Taylor, here's the problem. That is exactly what far-right extremists want you to think. I'm glad you said that, because I'd like to take a moment to talk about that specifically. This is a technique used by the far right. What they do is try to make it seem like, oh, everybody's lying. Everybody's lying, equally so. So you should just pick the lie that makes you feel best. But the problem, Aaron Taylor, the problem is that they're not all lying. And they're certainly not all lying equally. And the lies that you choose to come down on the side of will end democracy in the United States. You want to know who you'd be in the past? In the past, you'd be a Confederate. In the past, you'd be a brown shirt. In the past, you'd be that scum standing outside of a school, spitting at little black kids, trying to go into an integrated school. That's who you'd be, as a result of the lies you choose to believe. They are not all lies. When Marjorie Taylor Greene stands up and hoots and hollers about Hunter Biden's laptop, as though that has anything to do with Joe Biden's presidency, it doesn't. That is designed so that you get a chuckle at how ridiculous it all is, and so that you look at the January 6th committee and think, that's also just a show. And so that if Trump winds up in office and he tries to prosecute Democrats just for being Democrats, you can say, but that's what the Democrats were trying to do to Trump. But it isn't. You've fallen for propaganda, and I have no patience for it. Sorry to be harsh with you. And I do respect you taking that tongue lashing, but you got to hear it. Also consider this. If people are being honest with you, it's very unlikely that they will always say things that you want to hear. And if somebody is giving you genuine respect, then they're being honest with you. Just think about that for a while. And I guarantee you, I would utter that word scum to you in person. Styx Dragon, that's Shade Dragon. Sorry, it's hard not to be. No, I don't blame you. We got a fun one. Let's cleanse that palate. And by the way, Wicked Foxy Dragon, I got no patience for Aaron Taylor today. We're not putting up with Nazis today. I'll listen on Peace Talks Day, but I'm scrappy, and I'm just barely hanging on to a good mood. So let's keep it going, particularly by playing this next piece, which I'm looking forward to. Oh, the whole day was building up for this, I swear. There is a show called The Majority Report, and they tore into Elon Musk in a way that is beautiful. Just beautiful. You see, they pointed out something which I think was extraordinarily astute. Just a very a good reading of the situation. Elon Musk has announced, at least tentatively, that he's planning on changing the name of Twitter to something else. It's ridiculous and dumb. It's X something. I don't care. Why would he do that? One of the most recognized names in social media. Why would he change that? Why would he change the URL? Why would he change that incredibly valuable brand? Well, it could be because he knows it ain't going to be around much longer, and instead of being the guy that killed Twitter, it might be that he would rather be the guy that killed X.com. Whatever dumbass thing this is. Let's have a look.
Do you think Twitter went with the X instead of the swastika because he could copyright it, or does he suck as much at drawing as he does on everything?
He explicitly can't copyright it, and that's a huge problem. Like, even the X that they're using, the logo is the Unicode X, which is not copyrightable. So, like, I mean, it's moronic. But like, I think he's driving it into the ground on purpose. Like, this is what I would do if I had like more money than I could know what to do with, and I saw something where people were organizing and talking about my company and there was liability. I would buy it and I would try to shape it to my ends and make it a good business or whatever. But if I had to kill it, you know what? That's just like a fun thing I got to do, and at least I got to do wheelies during it.
I think you're onto something, and I think people have to remember he didn't want to buy it. He was peacocking around and did one of the dumbest things that I've ever heard of, which is did not do his due diligence before he committed to $49 billion worth of purchasing. I mean, it's like, I mean, you know, it's like not reading even a single review when you're buying a car or like not having a home. I'm going to waive the home inspection. Believe me, I've been in many homes before. I can look around and say, hey, there's no mold behind the walls. What? The water turns on. It's fine. I mean, he didn't do any due diligence at all. And then he got forced to buy the thing. And then I think he realized within the first couple of months, like, I don't know what I'm doing. So he's going to hire a fall person.
Also worth noting, didn't he buy Twitter right around the time he was getting divorced from Grimes? Or breaking up with Grimes, whatever. When fellas have a midlife crisis, it's not uncommon for them to spend a large amount of money. And when you have a ton of unearned wealth, when you have literally tens of billions of dollars, sometimes you buy a social media company. But look, this fella has a ton of his wealth tied up in reputation. So he cannot just say, oh, well, and sell Twitter on the cheap to the next guy going through a breakup. So what does he do? What is his plan? I think it was Majority Report that I heard this from. Let's find out if it truly was, because it was very funny.
And he's going to do all these things so that, like, Twitter doesn't fail. X fails. Like, he will be responsible for destroying Twitter. He'll be X failed. But, I mean, here's the thing. With this,
credit where it's due, as far as PR goes, that's going to soften the blow with those headlines a little bit. Not a lot of people are going to care when they read X.com shuts down. A decent amount of people will think that the Series XCOM is no longer going to make video games. Plenty of people will think it's a used car website that's no longer going to be functioning. I mean, of all the moves we've seen Elon Musk make, this is among the more dignified ways to fail at business. Credit where it's due.
With the strike, I'm convinced a lot of executives are like, thank God. because I can't get blamed for a strike. And those deals I made that were really bad deals that were keeping me up at night, where I committed this amount of money for that crappy show or this and that because I pretended I could do this, or it was more expensive and I just wanted to impress everybody and make it seem like we can cancel those shows now. And it's the strike to blame. Like he's just I mean, like, I don't even know if, frankly, Elon Musk has that much sort of like strategic planning associated with it, but it's quite clear that this is all like, if Twitter's going to go under, there's never going to be a headline that says Elon Musk bankrupts Twitter. It's going to be like X went out of business.
I mean, if people don't write that headline, that's
yeah.
Like,
I always like the business.
Let's really encourage our local news stations to get the wording just right in the headline. Twitter, now known as X.com, shuts down. This tells me, let's let him finish up, but this tells me that Elon Musk thinks this is likely right around the corner, because he's certainly not planning on turning things around with this rebranding.
Business people are the biggest morons to talk about like, oh, what's he doing? And like maybe there's some strategery going on here. It's like, you're probably still invested in some of this guy's companies.
Of course.
and he's rich, so he must be smart. I mean, that really is how most people work backwards from this.
Painfully true. Great point, Emma Vigeland. She always comes in there with the hooks. My God. Yes, that is how people think about it, and it's wrong. How many times do we need to see that it's wrong? In fact, having that much money means you are insulated from consequences, which means you get less good at decision-making. My God. But, reading the tea leaves here, you don't change one of the most recognizable brand names ever in the hopes that you're going to get a big influx of customers. You just don't. This is immediately following Twitter trying to throttle the amount you can tweet if you're not a paid account, because they didn't pay their bills with the servers that host their service. So they literally can't afford to keep running Twitter. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's about time to prepare yourselves to say goodbye to that platform. If you're still on it, enjoy it while you can, if you are still enjoying it. But it does seem like Twitter is on its last legs, if Elon Musk's behavior is anything to go by. Good God. Let's see what the Wicked community has to say. Heard Beer, it would be nice if there was a Twitter with an ownership structure like Wikipedia Foundation. Now, that's interesting. You know, OBS is a publicly... Well, here's the issue. Whatever was made, if it was let's say it was a piece of freeware, the servers that hosted it would need to be somehow set up from the client side, because there would just be too much data. It'd be too expensive to run it otherwise. Although if you're doing it like Wikipedia and you're taking donations, maybe. It's a really interesting way to approach it. Bob Treesh, the Vig, Styx Dragon Karen as well. The Vig, yes indeed. Sticks Dragon Carrot says, help me out. Let's all tweet horse emojis at Elon. Oh, God, I love it. Mars Falcon, meritocracy, my sweet buttocks. Very, very true. And Wireless Mike also, love me some Emma. Yeah, Emma Vigeland, man, a delightful addition to the Majority Report. I wasn't sure when she first came on if she would be a good fit with the crew, but oh, she surely is. Shade Dragon, Trump's business model is that of a carpetbagger. He only knows how to buy businesses on the cheap and disassemble them. Ooh, I missed it. And disassemble them. Well, yeah. Finishing that thought. Oh, here we go. And disassemble them to sell the individual components, a business chop shop. He treated the U.S. the same way. Elon still thinks he's a legit businessman and hasn't figured out the business model yet. Yeah. On that is a pretty common and disgusting thing that happens in the U.S. That was essentially the entire business model of Bain Capital, for example. Mitt Romney's one-time company. It's just stripping down businesses for parts and ruining lives along the way. Mars Falcon spared Christy Zilkowski. Okay, he chose wisely. Shade Dragon, same way. Elon still thinks he's a legit businessman and hasn't figured out the business model yet. Just lately, he's basically murdered Twitter. I don't love it, but many depend on it. He's a POS. Yeah. Wholeheartedly agreed. I don't even... I've had multiple Twitter accounts because I have used it once or logged in once, and then it's been so long since I logged in again that I just forgot my credentials and started a new account. That is my use of Twitter. So I cannot say that I will mourn as much as the rest, but man, once upon a time, it had an important place in society, but it's lost it utterly. Oh, well, I was still a little salty, I think, left over from Saturday. I got it out. Folks, we are winning. The good news is you're hearing the kicking and screaming of the Republican Party dying, and it could not come fast enough. It's final death throes. I look forward to existing in a world with you and without the Republican Party. I believe that we can make that happen in 2024 if we win the House, the Senate, and the White House, much like how Reagan and his presidency utterly changed the way the Democratic Party behaved for the worse. We can change the way American conservatives behave for the better. We can teach them a lesson that they will never forget and that they can never forget. I appreciate you, by the way. If you enjoyed the stream, consider leaving a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't. We do this every day but Sunday, and it's at 9 p.m. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake. And remember, when you see Terry's, it is our obligation to...
Rax. Sklounced.